Hello there, Qckslvrslash, and tonight we have a video courtesy of Jokenheiden in the very visible Minotaur, playing on Sea of Fortune domination mode, and this is actually a map I find that very much favors some of the more stealthy, island-loving cruisers. Ships like the Minotaur, Des Moines, even the Moskva. There's just so much land cover that you can use it to safely advance and get around the enemy fleets. And I think it makes for some very dynamic gameplay. It's actually one of the maps I really like. At least I really like it when the entirety of both teams don't just go to the 8-9 line and then sit basically as far back as possible and just wait for something to happen. When you get into a game where both teams are actively pushing back and forth, it can be a very fun map. Unfortunately, off the bat here, you can see it looks like pretty much the entirety of the team has decided C is not worth it. That's going to make it a little hard for them. They're definitely going to have to work to come back from that because that's a free cap for the enemy. There's nothing that's going to be able to contest that. And I honestly am not sure that they're going to be able to get Bravo, maybe Alpha. We'll see how that plays out. But for Joken right now, this is kind of a dream position. He's got 3 battleships all sailing broadside on, and he focuses down the biggest threat to him. Anyone who's played the Minnow knows the Yami, and really any battleship can end you, but the Yamato, with her excellent accuracy, just has this habit of ending Minotaurs almost instantly. But with the Yami disappearing behind a chunk of land, Joken switches to an even bigger threat. In this case, the Des Moines, the radar, right now, not in range, but that Des Moines is charging in pretty aggressively, and if he gets radared, Joken is going to be in trouble with all those battleships out there. Meanwhile, the enemy team, they got C, but it looks like Joken's team is going to get both A and B, and that's going to go a long way, particularly if they can pick up that Bravo cap, because it is a hard one to get later in the game as teams kind of start forming their battle lines. Now, this Des Moines made a big mistake, turning broadside on to pretty much the entirety of the enemy fleet. It would have been much better to charge in at this, Church Island, whatever you want to call it, Cathedral Island, and get behind the land. It would have offered him some protection. Kiting out like he did, well, you can see he's repairing. He's trying to keep himself alive. Got an enemy Qckslvrslash, and that's going to pull Joken's attention. The Alsace finishing the DM off. Now Joken, very wise to get his Hydra up, and, well, I'm not sure what spotted the shimmy there. Probably Joken's divmate in the Des Moines. I'm guessing they coordinated that, and they managed to get some good damage in. Unfortunately, the smoke's about to go, so it's really time for Joken to get moving. Well, I mean, he may not actually have to. With the Qckslvrslash pushed out, really the main means of detecting him is gone. Now, he did fire, so this Bismarck's got him spotted. And luckily, that Yami doesn't seem to be paying attention to him. They're much more interested in the teammate right behind him. Just give me something taking a beating, and Joken gets away. Detection ring closing in, and, well, you can see they never managed to get B, and the enemy team really pushed in there. And that's gonna spell trouble. Enemy Minnow there. There's a Low Yang. It's gonna be a hard cap to get. Now, luckily, the Low Yang already fired torps, so you know you're safe from that. And that enemy Minotaur is actually in torpedo range. So Joken put some torps in the water, and that's going to do one of two things. Either get a lucky hit, but potentially also just force that Minotaur to back up or sail forward to dodge some torps, giving up his smoke. You can see there are the Minotaur smoke. Oh, the Minnow right in close there, and those torps may actually be good. The Minnow kind of picking a terrible time to poke out. You can see one there, gets the flood, and the Minotaur got aggressive there, and just some bad luck on his part. Good luck for Joken. Gets a torpedo hit and some damage, and here's an enemy Iowa, and I mean, a battleship that can't really contest you is always the dream in high tier cruisers. Your DPM allows you to just put so much hurt onto ships in so little time, particularly if they're willing to sit broadside on. And with battleships, when you're in the minnow, if they choose to angle or get bow in, just go for the superstructure. It's going to take a lot of work before, you know, the battleship really becomes damage saturated. And until that point, you're still going to get consistent damage. It is worth noting though, if you do notice that you're shooting a ship and your damage numbers from hitting the same number of things, you're getting the pens, start dropping off, try and hit a different part of the ship. So primarily so far Qqk's been hitting a lot of the bow, a lot of the forward superstructure. So there's definitely some hit points in the stern to be had. But as you can see, the volley's still doing ample damage. Qqn gets a set of torpedoes off and looking for the single fire maybe through that little gap, but this Iowa's not doing much to try to run. So, ride what you've got, and in this case, I would really say that's just your rate of fire with the guns. To me, if I'm in a battleship, if you're facing off against something that is super high rate of fire, and that rate of fire stops, torps are coming your way. Now in this case, the battleship's gonna see that Qqn's still firing just at a new target, rightfully so. Enemy minnow popping up broadside on. Qqn got one citadel, and he has to run. Is in a tough place. The Iowa eating a couple torpedoes, and you can see Qqn just frantically looking around, trying to keep track of all the enemy ships around him to keep himself safe. Bit of luck with those torpedoes running out there, but he's gotta get some speed going. The minnow looks to have popped smoke, stopped in that. Enemy minnow doing the same. So, just look at your map, steer away, do your best to get yourself to safety. And for a moment there, Qqn's looking for the torps, but friendly Edinburgh in the way, so he holds. He waits for the Edinburgh to pass, then it's torpedo time. And that's really the right way to do it. And Qqn is primarily a DD player, so he's always thinking about, am I accidentally going to shoot an ally? And that should be something you're considering when you're firing torps. You can't account necessarily for allies who rightfully are steering away from your torpedoes and decide to double back. That kind of thing happens, particularly at long range. And well, you can see how fast these minnows can eat one another up. Both Qqn and that enemy minnow taking some pretty heavy damage. Qqn winning the fight though, punching 7 citadels into that enemy. And here's the Iowa again. He's on low health, and really all Qqn's got to do here, and he is doing it, just back up, get all your guns on target, and just start working the ship down. Even at 11,000, 12,000 hit points, that Iowa isn't a super huge threat. Well, at least until he lost spotting, and that is troublesome. Hopefully this Yu-Yang is going to get line of sight in a moment. You can see Qqn getting the Hydra up, anything he can do to give advantage. It's going to be important though is when the Iowa enters hydroacoustic range, Qqn's no longer safe to fire. He has to stay dark. His best bet at that point, in my opinion, going to be the torpedoes. And you can see he takes a shot. He's momentarily detected, and that second volley, now he's lit. The Iowa got inside that hard detect range, and well, now it's time to run because there's a battleship looking straight at you. You can turn away, trying to give the smallest target possible. Unfortunately, pulling most of his guns off, but at this point, you're really hoping for those torpedoes and just not a lot of damage. The Iowa doesn't get to do too much there, and really, any of these torps land, he would have been dead. Sadly, not the case. And that's why, personally, I would have just rode the Hydro, stayed in the smoke, let him get close to kind of that no return distance, throw the torps his way. But Qqn chose to do it another way and is about to get rid of this Iowa regardless. He's up to almost 200, actually crosses through 200,000 damage there. Finishes off the Iowa, but not before eating some big damage in return. Thankfully, British cruiser, very healthy repair party, picks up most of the health he lost. And another target, perfectly situated, gross occur first. side on, able to get some land between him, so now he can blind fire and just continue to rack up the damage. And things aren't looking great right now. I mean, the Yammy's on low health, but you've got a Montana and a Monarch who are having to contest a Fletcher's and a Smoke. You've got Joken's buddy, Lieutenant Dan's legs there. And the Yammy just backing up, trying to buy time. Now, thankfully, this Qckslvrslash isn't going to be able to push. The enemy Montana just got finished off by, enemy Yammy just got finished off by the friendly Montana, and well, the Qckslvrslash is basically forced to push into Dan's legs. Bow on Yammy, you cannot show the side to the Yamato. It will do too much damage to you. Now, when Joken opens fire, it forces him to do just that, and hopefully Dan can get some really big damage out of it, just continuing to back up. The Torp's sadly missing, and with a Qckslvrslash closing you gotta wonder, does he have Hydra available? Because if he does, that could cause some problems for Joken. But watching the Qckslvrslash guns, they don't look to be coming Joken's way. He's not preparing to shoot at Joken. So for the time being, I'd be feeling pretty safe in the smoke. Qckslvrslash doing everything he can, slamming the brakes on here to just try to buy time. And you can see the damage starting to taper off a bit, I'd say. Some of these volleys just not doing as much despite a lot of penetrating hits. Then again, that volley doing a ton. The Fletcher finishes off the friendly Montana, so they have to get rid of this Qckslvrslash. And you can see Joken just using every inch of his smoke here to try to stay dark from the Qckslvrslash. And man, is Dan going to be able to survive? Joken just peppering his Qckslvrslash, and it looks like they are going to ram. 1 for 1, 2 low health battleships, and that enemy Minnow got his guns going, and that's giving up his position. And as the last remaining ship, not a place you want to be. And really, the Minnow is not a ship you want to be in as the sole surviving ship. You rely so much on allied spotting to be able to do your damage. This enemy player is pretty much hooped. Joken landing a little more damage there, and really this is just get out in the open, get your guns firing, finish off the last target. There he is, practically broadside on. This volley should do it, if not the one immediately after. And by the end of it, it was quite the game for Joken, racking the damage up, 276,000 damage, only 3 of that, or 3 torp hits, counting into that. 3 kills, 8 citadels, 3 floods, defended the cap 6 times, and 360 penetrations. And that's one thing the Minnow does so well, and I know the new light cruiser line from the Americans will too, is you can just run that hit count up, and given the opportunities, get a lot of damage. And a perfect example there is when the Qckslvrslash was pushing Lieutenant Dan's legs, he was perfectly broadside onto Joken, and Joken was just able to put damage down. 3 to 4k per volley, and when they come that quick, it just melts hit points off of anything you come across. And that's what makes these British cruisers powerful. Now that Qckslvrslash, I really do think probably could have pushed with Hydro and just laid Joken out, but he didn't do it, so Joken gets away with just sitting there in the smoke, farming him. Now Joken was smart in the smoke. He was aware of what his firing and smoke detection was and using every inch of that smoke to keep himself safe, while Lieutenant Dan basically just bow tanked the Qckslvrslash for as long as possible. And in the end of the day, Dan gets first on the team, Joken right behind him, and just give me something a little further down. He did die fairly early. Anyways, I hope everyone enjoyed this. I did, as always. If you did, please consider giving a thumbs up or subscribing to the channel. And as always, I'm Qckslvrslash. I'll have another one for you all later.